off and rolling. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. hanging out here with you. And as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. A lot to get to on the Eagles Now rundown. Philadelphia signing an offensive tackle, and this signing falling under the radar for Philadelphia considering the need that they have at that swing tackle position. We're going to get to the latest Dallas Goedert trade buzz and the biggest remaining needs on this Eagles roster looking ahead to the NFL draft and, of course, the 2025 season. Let's begin with the newest addition to this Eagles roster in NFL free agency. The news being broken by Peter Schrager of NFL Network, friend of the show, and he tweeted this out that offensive tackle Kendall Lamm signing a one-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeff Stoutland, Eagles offensive line coach, gets the 32-year-old veteran for his Super Bowl winning offensive line. And this is not just a signing where the common fan is going to say it doesn't matter. Offensive line depth does matter for this football team, and Kendall Lamm could play a role for the Eagles in 2025. Some background on the player: was not drafted in the 2015 NFL draft, a UDFA out of Appalachian State. And he's really gone on to make the best of that situation, and he's gone on to have a pretty good career coming from a program like Appalachian State. Really good football program at that level, but of course not a Power 5 conference or a Power 5 team by any means. Good size at 6'5", 308 pounds, is pretty experienced, 119 games played, 44 starts, a lot of those games being played as a replacement or on special teams. He did have to undergo back surgery on January 3rd, so I think Philadelphia, what they wanted to do, bring him in on Monday, get the medicals checked out. He, of course, passed the medical testing, and then Philadelphia said, all right, we're going to sign you to this contract. His career path, I think this is pretty telling here, and this is a good sign. He's been able to stay with teams outside of Tennessee in 2021 for more than 1 year. So he's been valued as a depth piece along the offensive line wherever he's gone. Houston Texans, as a UDFA, he's able to stay there from 2015 through 2018. He was with the Cleveland Browns for 2 years, 2019, 2020, with the Tennessee Titans in 2021, and then he spent the last 3 seasons with the Miami Dolphins, 2022 through 2024. His season cut short last year because of that back surgery. He did make 7 starts with Miami last year, though, and when you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers and his rankings among all offensive tackles, graded out pretty well. He was ranked 33rd among 85 offensive tackles, according to PFF, visiting the Eagles on Monday, which resulted in this deal. And a big reason, I think, why the Eagles are bringing in Kendall Lamm and why they're signing him, they lost Fred Johnson to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Went to Super Bowl Philadelphia, developed a lot under the tutelage of Jeff Stoutland. He had served as that backup swing tackle who could fill in and start. He started some games for Lane Johnson. He started when Jordan Mailata got hurt. He played well in place of Lane Johnson at times. And when Jordan Mailata did not play against the Cincinnati Bengals, Fred Johnson was able to keep Trey Hendrickson in check. Trey Hendrickson is one of the top edge rushers in the game. We're talking about a player in Hendrickson who's had 17 and a half sacks in back-to-back years. And so Lane Johnson has his injury history. He's also getting older. Jordan Mailata doesn't have much of an injury history, but you never know what's going to happen there. You bring in a player in Kendall Lamm who can play left tackle and has a lot throughout his career, and he can play right tackle too, as evidenced and backed up by the career snaps by position. He's played more than 1,000 snaps at left tackle. He's played more than 1,700 snaps at right tackle, and he's played 1 snap at left guard. So some positional versatility there. Also keep in mind that when the Eagles brought in Mekhi Becton, they did so thinking, hey, we'll take a chance on a former first-round pick. He could be a backup tackle who could play right tackle, left tackle. And then he played so well at guard after Nick Sirianni had recommended that to Jeff Stoutland after Tyler Steen injured his ankle. And he never looked back, and then obviously he signed that 2-year, $20 million contract with the Los Angeles Chargers. Lamb's PFF grades in 2024, again, graded out pretty well. He's always been known as a player who's a better pass blocker as compared to run blocking. So an overall PFF grade there of 72.7, a pass blocking grade of 83.7, run blocking grade of 53.7. Some concerns there. It's never been his strength, but 0 sacks allowed in those 7 starts. And gave up 12 pressures with 441 snaps coming at right tackle and 70 at left tackle. So he's played more at right tackle, but he can obviously do both. And Fred Johnson, good luck to him. Signing with Jacksonville, he played his college ball at Florida, earned some more money than what the Eagles were willing to pay him, and of course, might earn some more playing time as compared to what he would have gotten with the Eagles. So you look at the Eagles offensive line depth chart right now, still one of the best offensive lines in football. Big year coming up for Tyler Steen to try to replace Mekhi Becton. I imagine him and Kenyon Green are going to be competing for that starting right guard spot. Kenyon Green coming to Philadelphia in that trade with the Houston Texans, which sent safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson to D'Amico Ryans and company. But across the board, you have Jordan Mailata still, Landon Dickerson still, Cam Jurgens going into the final year of his deal, Tyler Steen is a former third-round pick, Kenyon Green a former first-round pick, Lane Johnson signed that contract extension, which gave him a lot of guaranteed dough, and Kendall Lamm and Darian Kennard probably going to battle it out for that swing tackle spot. Laken Vakalahi, a Jeff Stoutland project, an Australian rugby player. Doesn't that sound familiar? He's that third stringer as part of the International Pathway Program. You have Kenyon Green as a backup, Brett Toth as a backup at center, and then Trevor Keegan, who the Eagles drafted last year, late round pick out of Michigan. I do not think that the acquisition and addition of Kendall Lamm is going to keep the Eagles from drafting an offensive lineman in the draft. And I've said this a couple of times, but I reiterate it because this is a part of Howie Roseman's thinking, right? He said he looks for offensive linemen and defensive linemen because he values the trenches, and it's a healthy obsession. And the Eagles do have some depth concerns along the offensive line. And so Lamm is a player who's 32 years old. You know what he is, but with Lane Johnson getting a little bit older, Mekhi Becton leaving, look for Howie Roseman potentially in the first 3 rounds to add another player to that offensive line room, in particular, possibly an offensive tackle. Before we continue to push forward on today's show, I want to say thank you to all of the real ones, the legends, and all Eagles fans who continue to support everything that we do, because Philadelphia Eagles now did surpass 117,000 subscribers. Go Birds, hit that sub button, and if you want Eagles coverage every single day year-round, that's insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking, where you have a voice as part of this great, fantastic Eagles community, hit that sub button right now. Still to come, latest trade buzz on Dallas Goedert, and the biggest remaining needs still on this Philadelphia Eagles roster as we look ahead to the 2025 NFL Draft. Eagles Super Bowl gear available thanks to our fine friends at Fanatics. Use that link down below. It'll take you to the site, chatsports.com/EaglesSB, and you can get whatever you want to celebrate the Philadelphia Eagles being Super Bowl 59 champions. It will never get old how they just caused destruction against Kansas City, and Patrick Mahomes looked flustered, confounded, and confused. How epic is it, too? The 2 Eagles Lombardi trophies that they've won, 2017 Super Bowl 52, 2024 Super Bowl 59, have come against Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. 2 of the most epic Super Bowl victories ever. Celebrate that by getting some gear today. All right, to the back half of the show. Will the Philadelphia Eagles trade or release Dallas Goedert? This is a conversation that we continue to have on this show because the future of the Eagles tight end, it's very much unknown. There's been so much chatter around this because Goedert is entering the final year of his deal. He has no more guaranteed money going into 2025. And this offseason, the Eagles have signed 2 tight ends, Harrison Bryant and Kylen Granson. It is also a deep tight end class coming up in the 2025 draft class. And the Eagles met formally with several tight end prospects while in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. But look, at this point, the Eagles should find a way to keep Dallas Goedert. It makes a lot of sense for this team with them still being in the Super Bowl window. I know he's hurt a lot, but he's a great blocker, and a really good receiver, and he's one of the best all-around tight ends in the NFL. And he has been a big-time performer in the biggest of games, especially in the NFL playoffs. Right now, he's the top 5 highest-paid tight end in the National Football League, but if you give him a contract extension, you free up cap space, and I don't think his new deal is going to be that rich, and he's been a focal point of this Eagles offense. If I'm Howie Roseman, if I'm Dallas Goedert and his agent, I want to find a way to keep Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia. Now, that position becomes pretty deep on this Eagles roster. Now, you look at the highest paid tight ends per year across the NFL, and there is Dallas Goedert at 14 and a quarter. Can you find a way to bring him back for about $10 million? Is there another team that is willing to trade for Goedert and pay him a contract so that you could get some decent compensation back? Maybe a 4th-round pick, and maybe Howie Roseman will explore that. But it's pretty telling that there hasn't been a market for Goedert up to this point. Otherwise, I think the Eagles would have traded him, because that's why partially they signed Harrison Bryant and Kellen Granson. And so if the Eagles can bring him back at an affordable price, $10 million, I'd be all for it because of the value he has as a blocker and as a pass catcher. Tim McManus, who covers the Eagles for ESPN, saying this about Goedert: one thing we heard during free agency, really hard to ignore the trade buzz surrounding the veteran tight end. He is in the last year of his deal, carries a cap hit of around $12 million. Perhaps a team with playoff aspirations and cap room will strike a deal for the 30-year-old playmaker this offseason. That's exactly what he is. He's a really good playmaker, and if you give him a contract extension, you lower the cap hit, and I think that you can have him at a more affordable price tag. So what should the Eagles do with Dallas Goedert? T for trade, K for keep? Let me know down in the comment section. We round out with this. These are the Eagles' biggest remaining needs as we look ahead to the 2025 NFL Draft at the end of April. Let's start off at the safety position. The Eagles traded away CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think they're really going to miss his instincts, big playability, and his leadership. The Eagles are very high on Sidney Brown. He plays with a lot of physicality, and it looks as though he's going to start alongside Reed Blankenship. But could the Eagles add a player like Justin Simmons? Because I think you need to bring in a depth piece. Tristan McCullum, I don't think he's a player who you want to give consistent snaps to. After the Eagles lost Milton Williams, I expect them to address defensive tackle in the NFL Draft. A player like Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, who's really good as a pass rusher and run stopper, really explosive at the line of scrimmage. I'd be up for drafting him 32nd overall. The Eagles let Oren Burks go. They re-signed Zach Bond. Do they think that Nakobe Dean is going to be back earlier than anticipated? Or do they believe a lot in Jeremiah Trotter Jr.? And then Howie Roseman is always going to look to build along the offensive line. Be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior, approaching 16,000 followers on X, 37,000 followers on IG. I put out so much Eagles content on my social media pages.